How's it going, Starseekers? My name's Gotcake, and in this review we're going to be taking a look at Demon's Tier Plus. The game released last year on Steam, and it's a roguelike twin-stick shooter which sees a team of adventurers delving into demon-filled depths beneath a small town to uncover the source of the evil that threatens to consume the world. The game's introduction talks of a corrupted king who became a demon and attempted to destroy the world, but his plans were thwarted when a legendary hero appeared, sacrificing his life to seal the evil away. Now 1200 years later, demons have returned once more. So we begin the game as an unnamed knight who's been tasked by King Argon to investigate the appearance of a hole in Bendel town. As we approach the town, we're attacked by demons and are introduced to the game's twin stick combat. The left thumbstick moves your character and the right thumbstick attacks. After defeating all of the enemies, we can examine the sign that appears, which provides us a basic game guide. Now there's quite a lot of information in this, so I'll cover the mechanics as we come to them. Continuing north, we arrive at Bendel town. We can now take a look at the game's options by pressing the plus button. We have some standard audio and vibration settings, and can switch between full screen and the game's original aspect ratios. We also get a couple of screen effects to modify the game's visuals. Firstly, there is high res, which I don't really get, it just seems to blur pixels together and doesn't look that great. And then we get CRT, which adds a flickery CRT overlay and also doesn't look great. Lastly, we have HUD settings, which didn't really appear to do anything in town, but changes the information displayed on screen in dungeons. When we're done playing with the game's settings, we can follow the big red arrow to the tavern. Here we meet our companions, each of which are playable characters in the game. Now to begin with, we can only play as the knight, and in order to switch to another character, we must first unlock them using D coins, which is the first of the game's two currencies. Our current number of D coins can be seen in the top left of the screen, and these can only be spent outside of dungeons and are obtained by killing enemies and defeating bosses within dungeons. Each character comes with their own base stats and a unique special ability activated in dungeons by pressing the Y button. These abilities range from providing defense and attack buffs or healing, to offensive abilities such as the Ranger's Mines or the Assassin's Kunai. Abilities require a full stamina bar to activate, and it takes a while to recharge between uses. After visiting the tavern, the rest of the town is still locked, so we can take a look at 2-player mode. By activating the Player 2 sign in the town, a second player can jump in and out of the game and gets to select one of the unlocked characters to play as. Now I had no one to play with, so I returned the second player and headed to the central hall to begin my first dungeon delve. Before entering the dungeon, we get to select our dungeon tier, and I selected tier 1 as it was the only one available for now. So as we begin our first dungeon, we're given a flashback of events which occurred 1200 years ago. Here we learn of the Princess Galenia and the Mad King Ihosgar, who had his counsellor and a soldier chopped up into pieces before feeding them to his dogs. Jumping forward to the present, we find our adventurers arriving in a cave beneath the town, full of crystals which only appear when large amounts of energies gather. As we begin in the Crimson Caves, we appear somewhere within them, surrounded by a blue ring. This protects us when we spawn, destroying any enemy or projectiles which come into contact with it. The ring fades after a few seconds and we can get to exploring. So we encounter our first enemies, destroying them as before, and can break open various containers which contain gold, the second of the game's currencies. Our current gold count is displayed in the top right of the screen, and I'll explain its usage shortly. Now each dungeon and its contents are randomly generated each time we play. In order to complete a dungeon floor, we must complete an objective selected from one of the game's 5 different objectives, and your current objective occasionally scrolls across the bottom of the screen. In this case, we need to find the key and open the locked chest. By hitting the plus icon, we get a menu. This displays our character's current stats, any runes that we've collected along the way, and a map of the current dungeon's layout, with white blocks being explored sections and orange areas being unexplored. We also get 4 icons across the top. The first is the current number of enemies we've killed on this floor of the dungeon, the second is the current dungeon floor we're on, the third icon is the number of chests we've found on this floor, and the fourth is the amount of gold we've gathered so far. On the left of the screen we can also see our current number of gold and silver keys. Gold keys are obtained by killing a larger enemy found in each dungeon floor, and we use them to unlock a large chest on the floor which can contain either D coins or a rune. Picking up these runes improves our character stats by various amounts. Silver keys can be dropped by enemies or bought from the town's shop, and are used to release prisoners from cages found on some dungeons' floors. Rescued prisoners will then assist you throughout the remainder of your run by providing a little extra firepower. So as we continue through the dungeon, we have 5 minutes in which to complete our objective, and a timer at the top of the screen displays our remaining time. If this reaches 0, the Grim Reaper will appear and begin chasing us through the dungeon. He's immune to all damage and will deal damage to us if he comes into contact with us. Our only escape from him is either through death, or by getting to the floor's exit door, which opens after we complete our objective, and an arrow points us towards it. After reaching the exit door, we then get to spend the gold we've earned to increase our character's stats. There are 7 stats in the game and most are self-explanatory. Health and defense increase our hearts and reduce the damage we take. Attack range and attack power increase the range of our projectiles and the damage they deal, and speed increases our movement speed. Stamina increases the rate at which our stamina bar refills after activating an ability. And finally, combo increases the decoy multiplier, meaning we earn more decoys for killing enemies. Each time we upgrade a stat, it costs more gold to upgrade it further, and there are max upgrade levels and stats do have a cap on them. So once we reach the 3rd floor of the dungeon, we encounter our first boss, which can be one of 2 bosses, this big ugly worm or this giant flying bug. And the bosses in Demon tier have a little bit of a bullet hell feel to them. Each boss tends to fire out significantly more projectiles than regular enemies, and you sometimes have to utilise your character's block ability by hitting B. This destroys or deflects incoming projectiles, but only lasts for about half a second. Now after you defeat a boss, it'll explode, usually leaving behind a pile of gold, a few chests and a large chest. These large boss chests can contain decoys or weapon plants for the character that you're currently playing as, but you only get a few moments to collect all this boss loot before the Grim Reaper appears once more, ushering you onward to the next dungeon. Between each dungeon you'll also get a short cutscene expanding on the game's story. Now the game features 5 different dungeons, each with their own unique enemies to defeat, and environmental hazards such as floor spikes and lava patches which damage you when you walk on them, and spider webs which slow your character's movement speed significantly. If at any point you die whilst exploring a dungeon, you'll drop all your carried decoys and a gravestone will appear. You can recover these lost decoys by making your way back down to the dungeon floor that you died on and breaking the gravestone. If things are getting a bit too hairy for you and you're about to die, you can use an escape rope to end your run and return to town with whatever decoys you've collected. Here you can spend them to unlock additional characters to play as, and following your first dungeon delve, 2 new buildings will be unlocked. First is the relic shop, which sells various items such as silver keys, additional escape ropes and potions which can be used in dungeons to fully recover your health, though you can only carry 3 of these at any one time. The second building contains the blacksmith. Any plants that you find in dungeons will unlock new weapons to craft at the blacksmith. Weapons cost different amounts of decoys to craft and each provides different bonus stats for a character. After spending your decoys, you can then repeat your ventures into dungeons, eventually working your way to the end boss. Upon defeating it, you'll be rewarded with an end cutscene and unlock the next dungeon tier. There are 3 dungeon tiers in the game and each provide a different ending, and completing the 1st and 2nd tier dungeons will unlock 2 additional characters and a couple of extra items in the relic shop. So I think I've covered the majority of Demon tier's mechanics and gameplay loop, so I'll quickly summarise my thoughts and experiences of the game. To begin with, I like the visual aesthetics of the game. I thought the sprite work was well done and there was some decent variety and detail to enemies and boss sprites. Gameplay was enjoyable for the most part and combat reminded me a lot of classic Gauntlet gameplay, with every character including melee characters using ranged attacks. But I have to say I was a little disappointed that each character's attacks were identical apart from the projectile appearances. It would have been nice to see some variety to character projectile patterns, and the assassin's kunai special ability proves that this was actually achievable in the game. While each dungeon features some variety in terms of visuals, I found that the dungeons were actually pretty samey, with the game's enemies mainly consisting of a lot of smaller enemies which either rushed to melee attack you or fired single range projectiles at you. There were a couple of more unique enemies such as mirrors which reflect your projectiles back at you, or stationary towers or crystals, but for the most part combat remained the same regardless of the dungeon. I was also pretty disappointed by the quantity of dungeons and objective variety. There are 5 dungeons in total, 3 of them contain 2 floors and a boss battle, and 2 of them contain only 1 floor and a boss battle. So that's essentially only 8 floors and 6 bosses in each run, and there are only 7 bosses in total in the game. On each floor, one of only 5 different objectives is selected at random, and these require you to either kill all enemies on a floor, find and kill a hidden enemy, open all the smaller chests or the larger chest on the floor, or destroy all explosive barrels or bombs in a stage. When you unlock the second and third tier dungeons, there are no additional floors, objectives or bosses, and the only thing that really changes is the enemy quantity, health and damage. My final gripe is with the game's dungeon timer. Now I have no idea why this is even in the game. Dungeons aren't that huge and can usually be completed within this time limit. But once you hit tier 3 dungeons you encounter a lot more enemies and your damage output sometimes isn't enough to kill all enemies before you hit the time limit. The Grim Reaper can also be a nightmare to escape with slower moving characters, especially on stages containing spider webs. So in general, gameplay in Demon's Tier was decent, but once you've seen the game's various endings, the lack of variety means there's actually very little to keep you playing beyond this point. So now we come to rating the game. Now I rate games between 1 and 5 stars, with a shovelware stamp of approval reserved for only the worst eShop games. This rating is based on my own personal opinion on what a game has to offer in terms of gameplay and value for money to potential buyers. And as a rating I'd give Demon's Tier Plus 2 out of 5 stars. The game's visuals and storyline are good and its gameplay and mechanics are enjoyable, but it's let down by a lack of variety in endgame content to keep you playing once you've made your way through the game's 3 dungeon tiers. The game releases on the 9th of June and you can get it from the UK Switch eStore for £8.99 or from the US eStore for $9.99. Alternatively, the game's already playable on Steam and will also be coming to Xbox One and PlayStation 4. And that's it for this review of Demon's Tier Plus. If it helped you out, don't forget to hit that like button and let me know what you thought about it and the game in the comments section below. Also, don't forget to hit subscribe to support the channel and be notified of future Switch indie game reviews. For now though, I just want to say thanks once again for watching, and until next time, game on.